Hey now, we are getting over, and I am the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, here to lead you through these hard times. With episode 869 of your favorite professional wrestling podcast. That's right, Getting Over is back once again, and it is Thursday, so you know exactly what that means. We are here to break down everything that happened across NXT and AEW. We have a ton of show ahead, so let's not waste any time off the top. Allow the Silver King to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple, take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can subscribe to us there, listen to the program, and of course, watch full-length video interviews. And we expect to have our next guest coming Wednesday of next week, April 1st. No fooling, right here on the Getting Over Wrestling podcast. Hope to have that announcement for you next week. Unlike the last couple of Thursday episodes, we will not be talking WWE off the top here. I was planning to do that, but two things. One, Vintage Chris Vanini was not available. Two, Silver King has had some type of stomach bug the last 48 hours. And frankly, by the time I got to watching all of the AEW content from the last week, I was just ready to record and kind of get this over with. But for those of you who did send in questions and comments for the show, we will round those up and include them on our next WWE program, which of course will be Tuesday. We are also going to have a shifted schedule, for lack of a better term, over the next few weeks for a myriad reasons. Among them, Silver King will, of course, be returning to Augusta National Golf Club and covering the Masters once again. I will do a little Barry Horowitz there. Yes, I am so proud that I have that opportunity, and so grateful is really the word I was looking for, to have that opportunity on an annual basis. But that will shift our schedule. Then, of course, the road to WrestleMania 42 will be concluding. We have special episodes, bonus episodes, a second interview that we expect to have as well. So we will be posting a full schedule of the Getting Over Wrestling podcast from now through the week after WrestleMania 42 on our Slack channel. And if you want to join us on Slack, you can hit the link tree in our social media profiles, again, at Getting Overcast. There's an invite link. Just click it, join our Slack, and you not only get to see our new schedule, but you get to commiserate with a bunch of Getting Overheads live during WWE, NXT, and AEW shows and throughout the week as news happens. So be sure to join our Slack. And as I said, follow us on social media. Let's not waste any further time getting into the show. We're going to kick off with NXT. We will then move to AEW, breaking down everything that happened across all three of those shows. Technically this week, all four of those shows. There are timestamps in the episode description, so if you wish to skip to one brand or the other, you have the opportunity. But as always, I do hope you listen to the entire show. Let's kick it off with NXT. Sol Ruca hit the ring for a confrontation, saying Zaria is clearly not the person she thought she knew, and she's bothered by their split because she thought they were stronger than this. Sol put 100% of the blame on Zaria, suggesting she did nothing wrong, and Zaria simply decided she was no longer worth supporting. Ruca claimed to have always pulled Zaria alongside her when others wanted her to overlook Zaria. Then she legitimately got emotional, which was pretty impressive, her eyes welling up with tears at Zaria's decision to take her out. Sol said she was genuinely believing they were better together, suggesting perhaps she was too loyal, while running down like one bullshit example after another of when she held up Zaria. In reality, all of those times she mentioned, she was being selfish. Ruca said that she understands Zaria's perspective and knows who she really is now, so they should just fight each other at Stand and Deliver. Zaria answered Ruca, saying Sol was the selfish one. All she cared about was her own success, while Zaria was focused on them succeeding as a pair.
Thank you!
We saw this unfold weekly. Zaria said she was only seen as Sol's partner no matter what she did, and her attack a few weeks ago was not a betrayal. It was just taking back what Ruca stole from her. And for the first time, she was no longer in her shadow, but finally standing over her, just like Sol did to Zaria for so long. Zaria said she should have realized this when Ruca kind of pushed her away from her the last year, but this time, it's not about Sol, but rather Zaria choosing herself, even if it means breaking Ruca. Soul refused to be painted as the villain in Zaria's story. She said Zaria treated it as a transactional relationship and gaslighted her. No, girl, other way around. Soul then called Zaria insecure, but Zaria said Ruca wasn't her villain, just her mistake. This was a near excellent segment that requires one harsh truth to be understood. Zaria outclassed Soul to a significant degree on the mic. She was more poised, more confident, more composed, more logical, and clearer as a speaker. Soul did not do poorly. Being able to emote the way she did in a live setting is extremely difficult, so she deserves her props as well. But what became clear as she spoke is something we have explained numerous times. NXT has done Soul Ruca a bit dirty the last 18 months by not putting her in the ring with a mic in her hand more frequently. She's not as confident as she should be cutting a promo, and for most people, public speaking does not come naturally. It's a skill that is achieved through practice and experience. That is what she needs, and that's why she is nowhere near ready for the main roster. Just like we said about Roxanne Perez and Braun Breaker and Trick Williams, fans were calling for them to get brought up 12, 18 months too early. WWE waited on all three. We told you they should be waiting on all three. And their career trajectories are so much straighter now because of that patience. The same goes for Soul here. Beyond all of that, there was not a single second during the time either woman spoke where I believe the proper alignment of this feud should be anything other than Soul as the heel and Zaria as the babyface. And the fans who initially cheered Ruca, they began turning on her as Zaria started explaining her side and standing up for herself. Soul was gaslighting the shit out of Zaria the entire time. She seemed to believe her own bullcrap. Zaria absolutely destroyed her on the mic, not only with skill, but with facts. And the bouncing back and forth between them worked quite well. But let's not get this twisted. Soul's character has been selfish as hell. Took every opportunity for herself, never once hesitated about leaving Zaria behind. Zaria was still happy for her, but she just couldn't take it as Soul ruined all of her opportunities, including when she got injured on SmackDown during their tag team match. Not to mention how Soul overworked herself and sacrificed their tag team for her single success. Soul has been a terrible friend to Zaria this entire time, saying one thing, doing another. Now, it's going to be great if NXT understands this and treats them properly with Zaria as the face and Soul as the heel. But I remain hesitant to believe they're actually going to do it. Despite Zaria executing far better, this was a tremendous segment. Credit to both of them for getting the job done. It felt like a real relationship breakup, no matter what kind of relationship you believe they had. And I'll just add this. Zaria needs to win this match, and this match needs to main event NXT Stand and Deliver. Ren QCC fought Fatal Influence. There were some strong sequences in this match, including Kendall Gray eating a top rope neck snap German suplex and pump handle neck breaker for a super late broken fall by Ren Sinclair. Gray answered with a flip over stunner and a step over back elbow. Landed not as well as Andrade El Idolo, but you know what? For her first time doing it on live TV, pretty damn good. Kendall twice countered Lainey Reed into an armbar, with Ren preventing Fallon Henley from breaking it up, locking her in final wrench for a double tap-out victory, though it was Gray on Reed that actually counted. Ren was good, not her best. Kendall was superb. Influence, they've done better in tag team action, but they still worked incredibly well. Gray cut a promo on JC Jane after the bell, declaring herself the number one contender for the NXT Championship. Lola Vice interrupted, though, claiming that she deserves the opportunity, promising to break JC's jaw and take the title. So Robert Stone cleared the deck, deciding on the expected number one contendership match next week at the theater at Madison Square Garden. Perfectly sensible booking. Plus, we're getting an exciting play-in match. Lola obviously had to be included after winning NXT Underground, and Kendall is absolutely the top prospect remaining in NXT, male or female. At first, when Stone came out, I was a bit concerned he was going to set a triple threat. NXT must avoid that booking crutch because they can still achieve it through a no contest next week. This NXT title match should be Jane versus Gray, one-on-one, a passing of the torch, which with at least, 2/3 of Fatal Influence getting called up to the main roster after Stand and Deliver. JC has been a terrific champion. She's cleared every hurdle put in front of her, but it is Kendall's time, and beating Lola, that's going to be a strong establishment win on the back of being the Iron Survivor Challenge winner in December. This was easily the match of the night. 3.75 stars B+. Kendall is incredible given her thin experience. Laney has been seriously impressive the last, let's say, month plus. I don't know where this in-ring repertoire came from or why it was hidden initially, but she's got major talent between the ropes. Still real iffy on her as a character, moving away from like the Southern gimmick and that accent that has helped her, but she still seems like an outlier to me in this group. Ethan Page admitted to Ricky Saints backstage that he still wants to be NXT champion. Saints said that was not a problem with him, except, he wants the title himself. Page reminded that he's the one who got the pin on Joe Hendry, and of course, Hendry came through, saying Saints better handled Tony D'Angelo, or he would be forced to face him at Stand and Deliver instead. Page and Saints continued going back and forth about, who would step into that spot, with Saints believing Page would have his back later in his match. This was just a building block for the main event, but the heels continue to really do well bouncing off one another. It's a great dynamic. They would work extremely well as tag team partners, and Saints has gotten his swagger and personality back working with Page and Vanity Project. He needed something to kickstart him again, and luckily they figured out exactly what it was. So we had Saints against D'Angelo, this main event of the show. D'Angelo dominated until Page pulled his leg, seemingly giving Saints an opportunity for a Revolution DDT. However, D'Angelo stopped him cold, hit a fisherman suplex. He followed later with an overhead belly-to-belly suplex and a massive spear. Page distracted and ultimately took out D'Angelo's knee when he looked to finish Saints. That led to a disqualification. The heels beat on Tony D 2-on-1. Hendry predictably made the save, did a spike DDT. He took out Page with a fallaway slam and clothesline Saints out of the ring, only to turn around and catch D'Angelo with standing ovation. Just for good measure, some revenge at what happened when D'Angelo came back and, gave him I think it was a spear. It might have been a spinebuster, actually, now that I think about it. NXT ended with all four guys looking at the NXT title, Page and Saints literally doing a mini tug of war with it, and Stone eventually announcing the four-way backstage to close the show. It's the expected booking, and frankly, it's the best NXT can do given the limited men's roster. Tuesday's work was fine. The women were so strong throughout the show. This just paled in comparison to everything they are doing right now. This match should be nowhere near the main event of Stand and Deliver. I would open with the Women's North American Championship. I would close with JC and Kendall as the co-main event and then Soul Zaria as the main event. This should be the mid-show match. I gotta believe Shawn Michaels is smart enough to know that. We'll see if it comes to fruition. Stone opened NXT with Shiloh Hill crazily wanting to be first in the number one contendership gauntlet match. Tatum Paxley was angry that Blake Monroe had her North American Championship held hostage. Hill was willing to help Paxley recover her strap, and Josh Briggs was not able to get a word in edgewise before Stone got pulled in for an emergency. Briggs later complained to Page and Saints that he can't even get a minute to talk to his boss. The emergency was Ilio LaFleur and Eli Knight having been attacked backstage. This was to cover because LaFleur injured his arm at an NXT live event, and you'll remember he was already subbing in for an injured Shawn Legacy as Knight's partner. So they brought up three guys from Evolve. Well, two from Evolve, and they debuted one in NXT, and already two of them are injured. This is in just a couple of weeks. Hill later gave Paxley the address where Monroe was held up with the belt. Basically, he was able to geolocate her because she posted about it on social media. Tatum had a really funny line, basically asking whether what they were doing was creepy, but Shiloh blamed it on Blake posting her entire life online, saying that is creepy. Lesson learned. Just a couple fun segments with two oddballs who have found this really fun platonic kinship. It works naturally between them as characters and actors. It's just nice that Tatum is not the craziest one in a duo for the first time in her career. And you could even argue with Blake, she's not the craziest one in a feud either. Monroe was in her bathtub talking to the North American title when she heard a knock on the door and opened it, thinking it was room service. The chain was still on, so Paxley could only grab Blake's hair from behind, saying she will see her face-to-face in the ring next week and get her title back. I couldn't tell if this was meant to be a takeoff of The Shining a little bit, but it might have been. This was an extremely weak payoff, though, for a show-long storyline. Tatum didn't get her title back, didn't get her hands on Blake in a real way. What was the point of going all that way to the hotel to do absolutely nothing? Why not hide on the other side of the hallway so Monroe was forced to open the door, creating an opening lane for an attack? She can go into the room and regain the strap. This was just dumb, particularly considering there is so little time available to actually build this feud. I wish they had used this show better. So the gauntlet match for the number one contendership North American title, Hill started against Jackson Drake, but this match included timed entries without consideration for eliminations. Deion Lennox and Charlie Dempsey were the next two. Dempsey replaced Lexis King, who also got injured over the weekend, but it was not explained. Hill got thrown through the barricade by Lennox before the fifth entrant was sent out. Instead of entrance music playing, though, Candice LeRae surprised, introducing Johnny Gargano to the brand and building where he had so much success as a means of finding himself again. Gargano's heel theme hit, but he didn't come out. LeRae had to grab him from gorilla position and drag him out to the ring. As soon as he climbed up, he took a boot to the face and planked on the ring apron. Out the mud, then attacked out of the crowd, stomping Lennox into the broken barricade area. Hill hit a pop-up neck breaker to eliminate Lennox. Then Gargano's body got rolled back and forth around the ring during the commercial break. Fans continuously chanted for Johnny. Interestingly, chanting Johnny, not Johnny Wrestling, which is his NXT chant. But he took a European uppercut from Dempsey and then planked atop of the barricade. Drake landed a huge tope con hero and 450 splash for a false finish, only for Hill to prevent a handspring move, hit his pop-up neck breaker, and get a second elimination. Dempsey landed a tremendous double underhook suplex bridge for a delayed count, only to get caught with the same pop-up neck breaker and the third elimination. Birthright responded by pulling Shiloh out of the ring, destroying him into the steel steps. Dempsey then hit a German suplex ringside with Hill getting thrown back into the ring. The crowd roused Gargano to his feet, but he was unable to capitalize. He just stood there still like a statue due to his depression. So LeRae gets up, pushes him forward. He falls down atop Hill, gets the 1-2-3, and becomes number one contender despite not landing a single offensive move. There was great work in this match from Hill, Drake, and Dempsey, but so much of this booking bothered me. First, not explaining King's departure from the booking. Second, I cannot remember a gauntlet match with timed entrance like this. A gauntlet, by definition, requires each match to be completed before another competitor joins. This was more of a mix of the Iron Survivor and the Casino Gauntlet in AEW, except it neither ended with a collection of falls nor a singular fall. The way it was booked, it was basically a 5-way eliminator match. So that's what they should have announced, a 5-way eliminator match. Gargano returning to NXT and being put in this position as a 2-time North American champion, on the surface, that made all the sense in the world. But him never being able to do anything in the match more than stand, despite the crowd going nuts for him the entire time, that was tough to enjoy. I get the concept. Every time he got up, he literally got knocked back down and thrust back into the depressed state. But Gargano simply being in NXT in front of the WWE Performance Center audience, that probably should have been enough to rouse him and give him the shot in the arm that he needed. Instead, he's effectively an undeserving number one contender fighting for the title at NXT's biggest show of the year.
No, don't like that.
I just feel like they had the concept down, but they really botched the execution. I saw a ton of other people who enjoyed this immensely, including the absurdity of it all. I am not here to tell you that it was bad or a mistake, just that I would have done it much differently. It went 21 minutes and never worked. If I was grading it, I would have given it something around a C. Considering the talent involved in this match, I said C, I meant C-. Considering all of the talent that was involved here and the high-quality wrestling they're capable of achieving, that should not happen. Los Americanos fought the Culling. Rayo and Bravo replaced the other babyface team, with the explanation being they beat Vanity Project in the trios match next week. And you know what? Fair enough. Nico Vance had a real nice spot catching Bravo, flying at him, hitting a Uranagi into Rayo, who he was holding simultaneously. Bravo looked like un chico grande y fuerte, manhandling Vance as the referee got distracted and he had a chance to load his mask. However, Sean Spears threw Bravo into Rayo, hit the C4 for a false finish. Rayo was able to load his mask as well, headbutting Spears as he got pushed through the middle rope. Bravo then landed a running headbutt, coming back for the win. I hope the Americanos would use a different finisher from El Grande, but I understand why they're doing it. The match worked as a replacement, even if there is far less runway with these two than Americano Prime, let's call him. OTM backstage cut their second straight hype promo, saying that taking out Lennox was just them repaying the debt put on them last week in Houston. They announced a 6-man tag team match for next week in New York, saying they have no friends in NXT, but they're bringing in someone from the outside to get their back. Mike Santana appeared on the TV behind them, calling their trio a deadly combination of savages ready to take out Dark State. This was a nice surprise. It should be a fun match. It's an interesting trio as well. Santana and OTM, they fit together like a glove from a character standpoint. There's a chance this over-delivers to a surprising degree. OTM are much better than faces. Linking with Santana is cool. I would love to see them as a group. I wouldn't mind OTM going over to TNA and getting Santana's back if he ever needs it against a faction or a group or whatever the case might be. I'm real curious to see how this goes. Beyond that, Santana getting to wrestle in Madison Square Garden, even if it's the theater for a New York kid, that's really cool. Thea Hale fought Kalani Jordan. Thea debuted a refreshed look with blonde, black, and red streaks in her hair. She was intense at the bell, but Lani escaped a Kimura lock, hit an X Factor and one of a kind in an extremely short match that basically accomplished nothing for either of them at the bell. Jordan attacked afterward, bending Hale's arm and elbow backwards until Jada Parker saved with a front suplex. I struggled to understand why this segment was so brief. Thea effectively got squashed. Jordan did not gain anything coming off of her prior loss. We already knew Jada was at odds with Lani, so what was the purpose of not letting them wrestle? It was real disappointing. Jada asked for and received a match against Lani next week. I'm excited for that matchup, and them doing it in the theater is pretty cool as well. And lastly, Jasper Troy got a promo package talking about his admiration for Booker T, saying it was the first time in Keanu Carver's life that someone brought the fight to him. He promised that he would make Carver regret getting involved in their business in a match next week. When I watched season 1 of LFG, I thought Troy had something special. Perhaps it was only that he stood out among the other men on that show. The promo here was okay. He's now a big fish in a big pond, and it's becoming tough to buy into him as someone worth featuring on this show. He's still young to the NXT roster, so there's really no rush, but early returns are not great, despite him being capable in the ring with some big, powerful moves. And this is not something I normally say about any wrestler, male or female, but he needs to lose some weight. Like, he is large and threatening, and there's a foreboding to him, but his body shape isn't someone that you look at and you say, oh yeah, I believe he's going to kick Keanu Carver's ass, when Carver is there built like he's carved out of granite. And that's not to say big wrestlers can't be successful. Bam Bam Bigelow, Bronson Reed, Piper Niven. I mean, you can name them one after another, but there's just something about Jasper Troy and the way he presents himself and the way he looks physically that just doesn't feel like it's working. And that's beyond the stupid ass chain gimmick, which should have been lost 6 months ago. They should have dropped that before he even debuted. There's something there with Troy. They just got to massage it and figure out a way to like make it more presentable and attractive to the crowd, because right now it's not really working. Briggs later got denied a third opportunity to speak with Stone, overhearing after the fact that there are no referees willing to officiate the Troy Carver match. The presumption in that moment was that he would step into that role. Carver later threatened Stone that he better get the match made, but Stone was hesitant until Briggs came in, saying he would do whatever he needed to do to get on the card because neither guy scares him. So yeah, he's the ref. Look, even with this clearly being
big meaty man slapping meat. That's what I want.
The booking is leaving something to be desired. It's basically because Carver and Troy are so raw and imperfect that it's tough to care that much about either of them at this juncture in their careers. Now, in terms of the go-home NXT in Madison Square Garden, or the theater at Madison Square Garden, before Stand and Deliver, these are the matches. We have Lola against Kendall in a number 1 contendership. Kendall needs to win that match and challenge for the title at Stand and Deliver. It should not be a triple threat. Santana and OTM against Dark State. Interestingly, Cutler James not only is not involved in this feud, he hasn't been featured on graphics that included Dark State over the last couple of weeks. And there were some people who messaged me after I noted this. They said, well, the guy got hit with a crowbar. Of course he's not around. That is plausible that he's injured and, not around. They're not talking about him. Usually you'd say, man, I heard Cutler's doing poorly or he's not going to be able to get back or whatever the case. I think the crowbar shot was to write this guy off. I think he's gone. I don't know that. It's just the inkling I'm getting from what I'm seeing on TV. The other option is he returns and he's the differential in the 6-man to give the heels a win. But I have Santana and OTM winning that match. Troy against Carver with Briggs as the referee. You got to go Carver here. The ceiling is so much higher. And then you have Los Americanos against, I believe it's Birthright, Stax and Uriah Connors in the finals of the NXT Tag Team Title Tournament. I can't imagine they're going to put Los Americanos in a title match at Stand and Deliver. They certainly could, and they would get the better match out of Vanity Project because those guys could just run around crazy. But I'm going to assume it's Birthright because they need to do something with that faction, which they've just built and needs to get featured on the show. So I'll have them winning. And in terms of the NXT Stand and Deliver card, as it stands right now, I'm going to repeat a little bit of what I said earlier. Sol Ruca against Zaria, this should main event. It needs a stipulation, but it should be the final match. NXT Championship, JC Jane defending presumably against Kendall Gray. This should be the co-main event. Does not need a stipulation. NXT Championship, Joe Hendry defending against Ethan Page, Ricky Saints, and Tony D'Angelo. This should be the mid-show match. North American title, Tatum Paxley defending against Blake Monroe. This should open Stand and Deliver. North American Championship, Miles Bourne defending against Johnny Gargano. I have no idea what they're going to do with this. And frankly, they need to build it real strong next week on the go home. And then Tag Team Championship, Vanity Project defending against a team to be announced. That is a real strong Stand and Deliver card, dominated, as I mentioned earlier, by the women. All 3 women's matches are the 3 biggest matches on the show. That's awesome to see. They just need to be positioned properly by WWE. Now, we have a lot more to talk about on the show. Before we get to it, Silver King does need to remind you here at Getting Over,
I happen to love the number 5.
and I hope you do as well, because for $5 a month or $50 for the entire year, you can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Sign up. You'll get bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Support us as we continue delivering performance-enhancing audio into your ear holes. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. Let's move over to AEW. Collision this week was split into 2 one-hour shows on Saturday and Sunday night, respectively. This was a means of capitalizing on March Madness as a lead-in. It worked from a ratings perspective because some people, just didn't change the channel. Tony Khan, though, did not take advantage of the lead-ins from a creative perspective at all. He threw one random match after another on the cards, one random segment after another, and they just were doing wrestling to do wrestling. You would think you'd want to capture attention with a big show opening angle, then keep people on the product and have them say, oh, wow, I should record AEW going forward. I have no idea what he was thinking. To that point, 3 of 14 matches this week were storyline relevant. Let me say that one more time. 3 of 14, 21%. Even if I generously added another, that would be 29%. This is what people mean when they say AEW doesn't tell stories. Not that the company actually tells 0 stories, but rather it is such a small part of the presentation and relegated to only a couple of feuds, usually only on one show, and not done with any consistency. The product fails to hook viewers the same way outside of the in-ring product. That is the problem. Taz was back on commentary for Dynamite, which made the show so much better. He is eons better than Bryan Danielson. Unfortunately, he replaced Bryan, not Tony Schiavone, who's worse than both of them. That trio with Taz and Bryan would be pretty damn solid. Commentary is not going to truly improve until Tony is gone, and really they replace Excalibur, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. But if you at least give me Excalibur, Taz, and Danielson, that's something I can listen to. The show overall was better than last week, Dynamite, but that wasn't tough to accomplish because last week's show was horrendous. Couple other quick items before we get into the breakdown. Ronda Rousey never signed with AEW, and there are no plans for her with the company. She literally just showed up at Revolution to create a moment. Remember, it's bad when WWE does moments, but for AEW, it's apparently okay. So she shows up, she points to the top women's wrestler in the company, and they had 0 creative plans to capitalize on that. It was just so Rousey could put a thumb in the eye of TKO, and of course, Tony Khan is perfectly fine with that every single time. It accomplished nothing except angering a few fans that she was part of the company for one night. Now, AEW was in the Twin Cities on Wednesday, yet they couldn't figure out a way to get Brody King on the show. King got AEW its greatest mainstream exposure ever a month ago, and they can't put him on a show near Minneapolis where those chants would have rang out the loudest. They still chanted on the show, but Brody King was the reason for it. He's what got that going, and they couldn't book him on the card. Curiosity requires one to wonder whether this was purposeful or accidental. Either way, it's frustrating, just for completely different reasons. Let's get into the breakdown of Dynamite and Collision. On Dynamite, Kenny Omega beat Swerve Strickland to become the #1 contender for the AEW title. Swerve put that title opportunity on the line despite not knowing he was the #1 contender, and Omega put his EVP position on the line despite basically swearing off those responsibilities in 2025. This opened the show and went 20 minutes, which was positive, because it was the only match of true value on the entire show, and it was easily the best segment of the entire show. They literally fell off the barricade into the crowd trying to do a pile driver, so they redid it. There was a nice sequence of counters inside before house call, a draping swerve stomp outside, and a swerve stomp inside led to a false finish. So that move is dead, hopefully. Swerve added a cool scoop power slam, but he taunted too much, allowing Omega to hit a ripcord knee and a V-trigger. Omega escaped a vertebreaker, but Swerve avoided one winged angel, did an eye rake, and then he hit a vertebreaker coming back for a delayed arm lift false finish. Omega was able to land another V-trigger plus one winged angel and got the win. Extremely strong match. 4.25 stars A. Omega has slowed down dramatically over the years, but the dude can still go. The EVP stipulation here proved to be entirely unnecessary, as was naming Swerve number one contender out of nowhere when, you'll recall, Andrade El Idolo is just as deserving. Only issue with the match is that Omega got the Cody Rhodes John Cena booking. He got his ass kicked, took multiple finishers, kicked out of everything, yet Swerve took one move and then lost. Would have liked to have seen him eat more punishment considering he just earned the title of most dangerous man in AEW at Revolution. They really should have sold that, with Omega needing to do everything in his power to take him down. This puts Omega on a collision course with MJF for Dynasty. And that's a particularly intriguing match because we all assume the winner is going to go on to face Will Ospreay at All In. You could make a super strong case for both guys. MJF is the pure heel to counter Ospreay, winning the title for the first time in his hometown. Omega is the standard dream match opponent. Both can do great work in the ring. Both can build the match well. This will be a real interesting decision. Later on Dynamite, MJF opened hour 2, cutting a promo in the strangest clothing combo he has ever worn. Bright blue vest and pants, patterned shirt with the scarf, everything clashed. His hair was looking better, at least I thought. He trashed Hangman Page, calling the win the easiest of his career. Then he ran through all of his catchphrases and did one of them exactly like The Rock. Omega eventually limped out, doing his whole dripping with sarcasm thing, rattling off his own nicknames, and the camera zoomed in on MJF, which it did not do again, because when it got close to MJF, it looked like hair dye was dripping from his forehead. It probably was like tanner, I would assume, but it looked like hair dye. I did not believe he enhanced his color. I just thought he got new hair, but there you go. Omega said him being godlike by nickname is the counter to MJF being the devil. And the first time they fought, Omega made a mistake by wrestling him at 60 to 80% due to his health issues. So, okay, MJF was able to beat that guy, the limited guy, but it won't be the same stipulation for the rematch. Omega said he wouldn't fall for MJF's hijinks. He knows he's better than MJF, and MJF probably knows it too. MJF refused to shake an extended hand, classlessly walking out as per usual. Look, MJF is usually a great promo, but he was not the one supposed to shine in this segment, and he most certainly did not. MJF said a bunch of nothing. Omega was cool, calm, collected. He showed a lot of confidence in their first interaction. We've said before that MJF has become a little bit one note. Hopefully that changes as this feud progresses. Omega was later informed there would be a no physicality rule for their contract signing next week, and that allows me to sarcastically remind you that there was a time when AEW promised it wouldn't do contract signings because they were trite and overdone by the other company. Mike Bailey then confronted Omega after his promo, hoping he beats MJF so he can challenge him afterward for the title. Then they shook hands. I found that to be entirely random. On Collision, Claudio Castagnoli and Daniel Garcia beat Commander and Mascara Dorada. That was the Saturday main event. Best and longest match on that show. It had no relevancy going in or coming out, so talk about random. On Dynamite, John Moxley, Garcia, and Marina Shafir beat Skyflight in another match that happened for no reason and just included the Death Riders dancing around like morons after the bell. On Collision, Mox and Pac cut a promo on Ospreay, Mox wondering how he expected to break his neck in a match, and Pac not understanding Will's anger at him considering he wasn't even involved in his attack. Hysterical to point out the illogical story beat in a promo. Pac said it was okay with him though, because they've always hated each other since the first time they shook hands. Ospreay responded on Dynamite, saying he's never shaken Pac's hand, so he doesn't know what he's talking about. This is like 4 segments the last 2 weeks where AEW cannot get its story straight. Someone says something, other one's like, that didn't happen. You're number one contender. I had no idea I was number one contender. Like, what is going on?
What is going on?
Anyway, Ospreay was enraged at Mox for snapping his neck in front of his friends and family, upset how he had to explain to his son what happened to him. He promised to alter Mox's life in the same way, calling him a mother effer. Decent enough promo from Will. Mox cut a promo after the trios match, accepting the challenge for Dynasty and telling Ospreay to watch his mouth so it doesn't get him in trouble. What's he going to do? Break his neck again? He already did that. It's a bit tough to buy into this feud considering Mox did what he did to Ospreay out of nowhere to write him off months ago. And we all believe Ospreay is far beyond the Continental title, particularly with All In returning to London. Again, it's going to be curious to see how AEW books this match at Dynasty. They're either going to merge the Continental title with the AEW title, fingers crossed, or they give Ospreay an excused loss somehow because of interference. On Collision, Tekla basically laughed while wishing Toni Storm a full recovery, saying she had everything to do with the attack, claiming Toni staged the whole deal because she's scared of a toxicity. So she was basically saying that it was her fault that Toni staged her own attack because she wanted to avoid her because she's a coward. She again had a real rough promo, but a strong closing line. She always has a strong closing line, saying it's better to fake one's death than deal with her in reality. On Dynamite, the women's title was on the line. Tekla retained over Mina Shirakawa, who earned the number one contendership apparently last week for beating Shafir, who had just lost to Toni Storm, after Shirakawa previously took L after L in singles and tag team matches for months. Tekla grabbed a belt in the latter stages of the match. That was a distraction for the referee. She grabbed Nux out of her bra, missed a punch, ate a back fist, punched Mina in the head in clear view of the referee with the Nux, yet still got the 1-2-3. She kept the Nux in her hand well after the bell, not bothering to hide them until the Sisters of Sin went to the ring like 2 minutes later. Like, come on. On Collision, the Brawling Birds beat Sisters of Sin. No reason was given for this match. On Collision, LFI beat 3 jobbers in 2 minutes. This was the second match on Saturday. Even a bigger head scratcher. Why the hell are you doing this booking coming out of basketball? At least someone remembered these guys were on the roster. But that was only because they had Ruca in a match on Dynamite against Darby Allin, which of course Darby won. That was the main event. It happened for no reason because Darby's been feuding with an entirely different group of late. Why is this so difficult? Similarly nonsensical was this being given a no count-out stipulation for no explained reason. Tony Schiavone referred to Ruca as Andrade El Idolo during this match. I can't make that up either. Preceding this match was a video package that featured Darby basically filleting AEW. I guess they didn't script a Where the Best Wrestle mention on the show, so they did this instead. The stipulation was on the match, clearly, so they could fight out of the ring for like 5 minutes to start. Darby bladed and bit Ruca on the top of the head before drop-kicking him out of a chair ringside. Darby then avoided Bull's horns and won with a jackknife cover. Couldn't even hit his finisher on a guy who's not allowed to wrestle regularly on TV. Don Callis' family attacked Darby after the bell. Andrade was angry about it. This is going back to the whole MJF paying Callis to take out Allen, who is not even his number one contender right now. I guess the move is going to be Andrade reluctantly fighting and losing to Darby at Dynasty. And then Allen goes on to become number one contender for MJF, which would mark him as the favorite, MJF to win the title or retain the title, over Omega. Then Andrade would turn face and feud with Don Callis' family, maybe Kazuchika Okada, go after the international title at All In. If not, it is really tough to see where this is going. On Dynamite, the Young Bucks got a taped babyface promo about winning the titles in 2026. This accomplished nothing. We've known this is their goal since they turned back. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage later cut a backstage promo, playing into their respective personalities. Cope said Christian is an asshole, but FTR are bigger assholes, considering what they did to Beth. And they had eaten in his home and played with his children, so they're terrible people. He promised to end their careers. Best promo on the show. Didn't say anything we hadn't heard before, though. FTR came out after this with Stokely out of his wheelchair. Cash Wheeler said Cope was dead weight that they dropped. He doesn't need his family now that they're a living legend. Dax Harwood said they're shells of their former selves. Cope and Christian. A nostalgia act just hanging on. He said if they dropped Beth, who they love, on her head, what will they do to Adam? FTR was much better here than they normally are because for once it was a bit of a unique promo from what they usually say, though they did, of course, slip in the living legend stuff, as they always do. On Collision, the trio's titles were on the line. Jet Speed and Mystico beat 3 random Don Callis family members, Konosuke Takeshita, Josh Alexander, and El Clone in the Sunday main event. The random champion team has yet to rush a name like they did with Hangman Page. I gave this relevancy credit. The sides have been at odds, even if the trio challengers were just thrown together. AEW having Mystico on a dual contract and doing this with him is a huge eye roll. On Dynamite, Bayley beat Rocky Romero in a Just Because match, playing off of this endless, storyless feud. I decided not to give this one relevancy credit because there was no reason whatsoever for these two to fight each other. On Collision, the TNT title was on the line. Kyle Fletcher defended against Robbie Eagles, and of course retained. This open Saturday show, a non-roster talent getting a title match for no reason with no effort to hook viewers. Seriously, why are you coming out of basketball into this when you can do something to catch the viewers and keep them on your show? Fletcher on Dynamite 4 days later said Eagles was his mentor and beating him was important on his road to becoming the greatest TNT champion. Then he said he wants to bring the AEW title back to the Callis family. Bro, you are already strapped up. Concentrate on the TNT title. Develop feuds for the TNT title. Fletcher then brought in Takeshita, ensuring he understood that Fletcher teaming with Okada should not come between them as friends. Takeshita agreed and they hugged. On Collision, Orange Cassidy and Roderick Strong beat something called Lethal Twist, Jay Lethal and Lee Johnson in the Sunday opener. Another no-reason match with no effort to hook viewers. Why didn't the teammates of the Swirl tag here? Why are you opening a show with a guy playing with his pockets, another guy doing a Ric Flair strut in 2026? You should be putting your best foot forward. I've said this now 3 times. The gimmick here is that Cassidy and Strong actually worked together despite being at odds before. Strong then took the mic and officially joined the conglomeration. What a massive change from working with them the last few months to working with them officially. Heaven forbid they run a couple weeks storyline with the other members, like really trying to convince him to join, maybe bribing him, doing this, doing that. Don't forget, this guy completely disappeared for weeks, comes back, helps them, and he's like, all right, I'll join you. The Dogs interrupted on the big screen, calling themselves Savages, challenging to a tag team match on Dynamite. Their promo was okay. On Dynamite, the Dogs beat Cassidy and Strong after David Finlay took out Orange's knee, and they combined for the full clip, a tandem inverted spear off the ropes. Terrific tag team finisher. Better if it was executed by a bigger man, but I will take anything unique, especially if it has a name. So great finisher there. On Collision, Divine Dominion, the name for the women's champions, beat 2 jobbers in 70 seconds. Completely worthless. Only time the women got on the Sunday show at all. The champions got a promo package on Dynamite with Megan Bayne continuing to look absolutely ridiculous in that headdress. All they did was shit talk the former champions. They didn't develop anything new. On Collision, Tommaso Ciampa beat Lio Rush in 11 minutes. There was no reason for this match, of course. Lio had his first match with this new gimmick at Revolution, some weird like Smeagol character with black and white contacts who crawls around the ring. The entrance presentation and music was actually kind of cool visually. And I give Lio credit for going 100% into the gimmick with how he emotes, screams, make noises while wrestling. But holy shit, does this suck. And holy shit, it should not have taken Ciampa 11 minutes to beat this joke. This is a career ender for Lio, at least when it comes to AEW. I would be floored if this works. By the way, bye-bye crew, the other 2 random members you have, go ahead and do nothing now, get relegated to Ring of Honor. And if you are going to do this character, you can't call it Lio Rush. You have to give it a name like Smeagol or something like that. I don't even remember what the character's name was in that, what was it, Lord of the Rings? Am I getting that right? I saw each movie one time in college and never again. You got to give him his own like weird character name if you're going to make this work. On Dynamite, Ricochet led a promo from the Demand in the parking lot. Incredible, he didn't even get held off TV for that bullshit he did online. Ricochet complained about having to put the national title on the line in a battle royal. Fair enough. He was also angry that Omega is the number 1 contender now when he's beaten him before. It was a solid promo from Ricochet. You know what? It was one of his better promos since starting in AEW, actually. It's just tough to buy his claim that he should be positioned higher when he was holding the 5th men's singles title, doing okay with it, and then lost it in a battle royal. So that was AEW this week. As I said, a better show. No question about it, a better show than last week. But that did not take much to accomplish because last week's Dynamite was frankly horrible. All right, folks, that is it for today's show. We will be back on Tuesday talking all things WWE. Make sure you listen to this week's WWE episode as well. Vintage and the Silver King, we went deep on the top storylines on the road to WrestleMania 42. On the way out of this episode, allow me to remind you that the Getting Over Wrestling podcast
is all about Defy.
So head over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify, leave a 5-star rating on Apple. Take a little extra time, leave a 5-star written review. If you do, we will read it live right here on the show. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Getting Overcast on Twitter and Blue Sky. You get episode drops, news, analysis, highlights. You can send in questions and comments for the show. On YouTube, you can subscribe, listen to the episodes, and also watch full-length video interviews across the board. You can find us at Getting Overcast. And lastly, do not forget,
I happen to love the number 5.
Hope you do as well. $5 a month, $50 for the entire year. You can become an official Getting Overhead. Just visit buymeacoffee.com/gettingover, and you will receive bonus audio, the fastest 5 minutes in professional wrestling, instant reactions to every major show, and exclusive news analysis posts every week. Please support us financially as we support you with this free and ad-free show. buymeacoffee.com/gettingover. All right, folks, that is it for this week. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. This is the Silver King, Adam Silverstein, signing off and leaving you with just 3 final words. Bye for now.